Woo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. So do appreciate you tuning in this morning. So I burnt my tongue on my coffee, and it's like the very tip of my tongue. So if I sound a little awkward, I'm sorry. It's just like I burned it a little bit on my coffee this morning. And now it just feels, oh. Of course, Monday's got to start this way. No, we've got some great news ahead. And I hope you had a great weekend. I had a fantastic weekend. We took my mom out, my twin brother and I, and my husband. We all went out to eat. It was great. And we had our little baby, my little baby cousin, my mom's great nephew with us. And it was so much fun. It was so much fun. And happy Mother's Day, belated Mother's Day to all the moms out there. I appreciate what you do. And yeah, I spent my Mother's Day actually this weekend. Saturday, I'm into sourdough. You guys probably don't know that about me. I love sourdough. And I taught a class at my church, at my women's ministry. And it was so much fun. And we actually got into the book of Ruth, and it actually pertains to this story that I'm going to get to here. The media has they're striking gold, or they strike gold with this new deportation story. And I think it's really interesting. And you can look into the book of Ruth, actually. And I had taught this book, at least the first chapter of it, at our women's ministry, which is led by Sarah, over the weekend. And I don't know why, but I'm like pulling articles this morning, and I'm like, man, this just like reminds me of this book. So I'm going to share it with the moms out there. It kind of relates to our story a little bit. So we're going to get to that here in just a little bit. But I do want to get to the Canadian business owner who claims that the government is actually now offering money. And this is one of these things where it's like, take note, America. Um, Canadian business owner, he's claiming that the government is offering them money if they hire migrants over actual Canadians. Now, here in the United States, we don't have any overt tax incentives or tax packages if you hire illegal immigrants, okay? And of course, when I say migrants, I mean illegal immigrants, okay, over Canadians. The government is actually incentivizing that. Canada, allegedly, according to this business owner, he did a man on the street interview. But I mean, like, there's incentive, obviously, here in the United States. I think I brought you the story. It was HelloFresh. They were based out of Aurora, and they had children, illegal immigrants, working, allegedly. Okay, so child labor laws being violated, all of that. HelloFresh, it was a facility, a processing meal kit. They make meal kits, HelloFresh, and allegedly they had children working there, and they were in all kinds of violations of child labor laws. And of course, even American companies, they're going to see that, hey, I can exploit someone's labor. You're going to have people like this. And that's why illegal immigration is so evil, because it's very, very easy for people to exploit illegal immigrants once they're here, because they spend all their money. They give it to a human smuggler like Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Everything they've ever earned in their lifetime, they give it over to a human smuggler. Then they get cross the border, and then they're here penniless. They have no pennies to their name. And then these business owners will offer them a job at like way below what it should be, their wages, okay, for slave wages. They'll get hired on. So we're going to get to this Canadian business owner. I thought it was an interesting clip. And then we'll also get to Salt Lake City officials. They're declaring LGBTQ flags. It's a municipal flag to evade state law. Now, this has been a thing lately. It's gaining traction where red states are banning pride flags from being flown above government buildings. Okay, so Illinois, there was this bill where they banned the flag from being flown upside down outside of government buildings, because people were doing that because we were in a time of distress under Joe Biden, who did not win the 2020 election, right? It was stolen. We know that. Definitely the Hunter Biden laptop story, if nothing else, being suppressed, swung the election a specific way. So the American media stole the election from you, okay? But here in Illinois, they crafted a bill and they tried to, outlaw you flying the American flag upside down outside of government buildings. Now we've got red states outlawing LGBTQ flags being flown as municipal flags. So Idaho is one, Utah is another, but Salt Lake City and Boise, Idaho, and Salt Lake City, these blue cities, they are declaring their LGBTQ flags as, well, of course, municipal flags, and they're trying to get around, of course, the the state laws that have been passed. Okay, so let's get into this. The goal of government, like I said, should always be to represent, oh, I don't know, the citizenry, right? Not foreign nationals. However, this is not the case with the left-leaning nation, Canada. Okay, so, and there are northernmost neighbors, and this isn't surprising, okay? Canada, they are now being accused of offering kickbacks to businesses if you hire migrant workers over Canadian citizens. And most of the business owners are already doing this because they can pay their workers slave wages and take advantage of them because they're here in the country illegally. They'll hold their status over their heads, which is why illegal immigration and ensuring that illegal immigrants have either a student visa, a green card, a work visa, whatever it is, there's thousands H-1Bs, there's thousands of visas out there that they could apply for and go through a legal avenue here. That's why that's so important, because if they're here in the country, it's actually compassionate to force them to obtain a legal status, okay? Because then if they don't, they'd get exploited by business owners who want to pay them slave wages. Here's this guy, man on the street interview. This is great in Canada. He talks about how the businesses there are getting kickbacks. Here we go.
The kids today are just struggling. The 20-year-olds, there's no jobs for them out there.
Who gets all the jobs?
The migrants. The companies get to hire the migrants. When they hire them, they pay them less. Okay? And also, they could get kickbacks from the government. I own a convenience store, for instance. I hire you. You're from India. Then I get an MLRI. I get to hire you, and basically what happens is I pay you $20 an hour. The government every 3 months gives me a 30% kickback. I was in Prince George, my hometown. The people at the movie theater, the lady was telling me she doesn't want to work here anymore because everyone she works with is Indian and they all speak Punjab. So she goes to work. She's a Canadian kid that grew up in a small conservative town that can't work in a place because no one that she works with actually speaks English, because they come here and they don't speak English either. If you were that person that owned the movie theater and your cost of doing business were, 30% went straight into just hiring the kids, hiring employees. Now, if that 30% now to pay 60% of that 30%, because you got that all back, you're going to make more money. So what do people do? They take care of themselves and their family. So they will hire those people because their family is going to get rewarded as a result.
Okay, so there you have it. The guy explained how, 9 times out of 10, you're going to have a business owner who's going to hire the migrant worker. And it probably is illegal immigrant, but also legal migrants as well. You kind of get this credit or a kickback. And if what he's saying is true, of course, you're going to hire the immigrant over Canadians. Okay. Either way, whether it's illegal immigrants or if it's legal immigrants, that's not how this should go. As I said at the beginning of this segment, government should be in the interest of its people, the Canadians, okay, not foreign nationals. Okay. So the legal status, like even if it's like a temporary legal status, but I don't think Canada really has much of that. If you just come from a different, say India, a different country, you're automatically so there's not even a term illegal immigrant because they don't have immigration systems like we do here in the United States, like a federal law. They're supposed to, right? And they used to, but under Justin Trudeau's tyranny, much like under Joe Biden, there's no such thing under Joe Biden as a legal immigrant because they don't really see that as an enforceable law, the left. So this harms the citizenry. This harms Canadians, and the government is rewarding business owners by kickback. I mean, this is insanity. Additionally, if Canadian is offered a job, like the work culture in some places is so foreign that it makes it impossible to want to work for this company. Okay, so one, you're giving preferential treatment to someone over their nationality. Okay, so this is discriminatory against Canadians in that you're always going to hire the person that's going to give you a kickback. Okay, that's going to give you money. So this is discriminatory, but also it's going to create this environment where it's completely foreign and you won't even want to really apply to jobs that have all of these people who don't speak English. Okay, in Canada, they don't speak your language, and it makes it impossible to work in these environments. The government seems set on making Canadians fail. Okay, that's what this is, because they don't want to apply to jobs because it's impossible to work with people. Number two, even if they do apply for a job, they're never going to get the job because hiring them, there is no kickback. So you see where I'm going here with there. But what do you expect? They have one of the highest immigration rates per capita in the world, 500,000 newcomers each year. So according to the National Post, this is interesting. The polling found that 65% of Canadians say Canada is accepting way too many immigrants. Okay, way too many legal immigrants, by the way. They say, whoa, 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 you're accepting so many. That figure was less than it was less in February. Okay, so this is a recent poll, 65%, now less than a year ago, in February. So this would have been, I think it was February 2024. I got to double check my study here. But that was 50%. So point is, it's going up. More and more Canadians are getting fed up with this as time goes on. 65% of Canadians now say, whoa, Canada, you are accepting way too many migrants. In March of 2019, it was only 35%. So from 2019 to 2025, it's jumped from 35% to 65% of Canadians who held that view that, hey, Canada, you're bringing in way too many. Canadians' views are hardening, actually. The Canadian government, they're at least trying to harden their immigration. They're trying to put target reductions on this, okay? So, like I said, it was 500,000 a year about, and now they're going to do 395,000, okay, of new migrants. Okay, so that's newcomers, 2025. That's their target, and that's a reduction from the 500,000. And then in 2026, they're going to reduce it from 395,000 to 380,000. And then in 2027, they're going to reduce it from 380,000 to 365,000. That's what they've promised the residents and the citizenry of Canada. But there is housing costs. There is, of course, like the increase of housing costs, the employment challenges, as I said. And this is why the Canadians they hold this view that this is just way too many migrants. So now Canada is responding by putting thresholds on this stuff. Okay, they're saying, okay, we're going to lower it from 500,000 per year. But look, folks, this is still ridiculous because, I mean, like, that's nearly 400,000 immigrants that you're allowing to come to the country and you're accepting. That's a lot, okay? And considering the employment challenges, and maybe you should get rid of, I don't know, the kickbacks to the businesses for hiring people of a certain nationality, which is totally discriminatory. The damage is already done, okay? And I don't care what the government says about these thresholds and these reductions of newcomers. I don't care what they say because this is still a lot. $400,000 or 400,000 a year. Newcomers. It's comical. It's almost like a slap in the face. Like, oh, you're upset about the immigrant. We'll cut it down like by 100,000, but that's it. Barely even 100,000. And this is a slap in the face to the Canadian people. And this is one of those stories where I say, hey, America, file this under take note. don't let this story just slip by you, because we are headed into that direction if we don't win the 2026 midterms. If Donald Trump, or if Donald Trump's successor is not a Republican, J.D. Vance, somebody who's hard on or tough on open borders. All right, I got to take a quick break, but you're listening Conservative Cat Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. Hey, happy Monday. So do appreciate you being here. We are going to be getting to this because it really pertains to the story I've got today. For example, this story is about this. It's this new deportation story. So Kilmar Abrego Garcia was not the poster child. And I've said this before, and I bet the left, took what I said and they applied it. Okay. So a couple of weeks ago, remember when I said, if you were going to use Kilmar Abrego Garcia as like a poster child for due process, he's entitled to due process, he shouldn't have been shipped away to El Salvador, you would think that the left would come up with a migrant who was at least like nice. You know what I mean? Like they pulled an MS-13 gang member, somebody who was caught on camera, human smuggling, somebody who was a wife beater, had like all kinds of domestic violence history. Like that was the guy you guys chose to elevate in the media and say that he's like this Maryland dad and he's a father. Like that's the guy. Like this is all verifiable information, like the MS-13 gang tattoos. We have pictures of it. We have all of the police reports. We have him going before 17 judges. Like this was the guy you chose. Now the media has a new darling, a new golden goose. Okay, so this woman, I think she's young. She went to college, and in 2010, I'm going to mess up her name. Arias Cristobal. Okay, she was brought to the United States illegally by her parents when she was only 4 years old, and the family moved from Mexico City to the Dalton area, over 30 miles from Tennessee and Georgia border. Okay, so she's down south, 30 miles from the Tennessee and Georgia border. Okay, so I bring this story to you today, and as it relates to the book of Ruth, if you were to read through, and I taught this book, at least chapter 1, during my time at women's ministry on Saturday over the weekend, because there's 3 women there, and I really taught it because it was Mother's Day weekend. There's 3 women in that story: Naomi, Ruth, and Oprah. Okay, Naomi, she went there with her husband and her two sons because Israel's in a point of famine, and the husband brought the whole family over to Moab. Okay, now their children are actually named after, like, I think it's sickness and let me look this. There's something. Their Hebrew names. I forget their Hebrew names. I'm gonna have to look at their 2 sons' names. Sorry, but their Hebrew names are reflective of the period of turmoil in Israel. Okay, so they leave Israel because there's a famine going on, and they go to Moab, this country. Okay, and now this is a country of pagan, worshiping like type gods. It's not the God of Israel that they worship over there. Now, people have said, and I agree with this interpretation, that was a wrong move on behalf of the husband. Right, he took his whole family and left Israel rather than staying there and making a change. Right, he fled, and there was a lack of trust in God. Some interpret this move from Elimelech, that is the husband of Naomi. They interpret this move as a lack of faith, right? So instead of trusting God and that he'd provide during the famine, they ran away to a foreign land. Okay, so I'd imagine, 10 years ago, which is how long this woman's family has been there, and they came there illegally, I'd imagine that their country is not in an economically sound place. Okay, and this is like just totally debunking the leftist view that illegal immigration is something that the Bible advocates for. No. So at the end of the day, what winds up happening is their kids die. Okay, and some interpret that as, hey, this was some sort of judgment. This was some sort of like tragedy that came from, and these are consequences from divine judgment or a tragic outcome of a poor decision. Okay, so the kids die. It's a very short book. We're going to get into it because I think it really pertains to this story of illegal immigration and this family who brought their children over. There's tragic consequences to that. So now the girl is going to be deported. The media has thrown her into the spotlight. This is their golden goose. This is their new deportation story. No longer is it about Kilmar Borrego Garcia. They finally found, somebody who doesn't, most likely from all appearances, doesn't have a criminal record, looks very sweet. She looks like a very pretty girl. And she, graduated college, looks like, and but she's been here illegally for over 10 years, and her family made this poor decision. So poor decisions ultimately have tragic outcomes. Okay, and that's moral of this story today. There's just so much in this book, and like you said, you really like the Book of Ruth. I'm glad that you do. Yes, Ruth winds up being King David's, I think, great grandmother, and ultimately, this is also a story about how God can use your poor decisions, and had they not gone, they wouldn't have met Ruth, who's the daughter-in-law of Naomi, right? Who would later come back to Israel with her, and she'd become the great grandmother of King David. And we know that that's the lineage of Jesus Christ. So very, very important that they did go to Moab to meet Ruth. But consequences, poor decisions have consequences. That's what I'm getting at here today. So hold on to your horses. We're back with more news now. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. We've got so much news to get to this morning. Happy Mother's Day. I know it's belated. I hope you had a blessed Mother's Day. Let me know on our text line 309-451-9299. What were your Mother's Day weekends? What was it? What did it look like? I want to know. I'll read your responses. Do you have any moms you want to wish Happy Mother's Day to? Go ahead, text me 309-451-9299. Before we took the break, I was telling you a little bit about Canada and their illegal immigration over there. They are giving kickbacks, allegedly, according to some business owners on this man on the street type interview. He revealed that the Canadian government is giving kickbacks to business owners who hire specifically migrants. And like I said, the beginning of the 6 o'clock hour, government should be representing the citizenry, not foreign nationals. I mean, that just makes sense, right? And the reason the country does not seem to have a bad problem with illegal immigration as the United States is because they have just open borders. Okay, so they don't really define illegal immigration like we do in Canada. They have open borders. We have federal immigration laws. We have a border. Canada, they have such a problem with illegal immigration. Migration, like I said, they accept 500,000. I mean, at that point, it's just the border is open. Okay, there is no such thing as illegal immigration. Now they have introduced reductions to this 500,000 a year number of newcomers. They're reducing it. Why? Because the Canadians are fed up. They're starting to get really upset because of the employment opportunities. They're not there. Because the resources, they're not there. And it's really taking a toll on the economy there. And now they've introduced these reductions, but really these reductions are a slap in the face to these people because it's not even really much of a reduction at all. Like I said, 65% of Canadians say Canada is accepting way too many immigrants. Like I said, we have different definitions, the US and Canada, but they claim that this is in the best interest of all people, although they are actually destroying the average person's chance at making ends meet in Canada by allowing 500,000 people per year, newcomers per year. You're literally going to destroy your economy. You're going to destroy any kind of employment opportunities. And then on top of that, you're offering incentives to business owners to not hire Canadians, but to hire these newcomers. One, that's discriminatory. Two, It's like you're never going to hire a Canadian again. Why would you, as a business owner, if you're going to get kickbacks? You're never going to hire Canadians ever again. Number three, it's creating environments where Canadians don't even really want to work in Canada anymore because it's become impossible because none of these newcomers, and this is kind of a new fad because I remember talking to my mom and dad, and this is kind of like a new thing where immigrants don't want to learn the language. They bring their language and they don't want to assimilate to the culture, right? And it never used to be that way. We'd have something in common. And the immigration process and the vetting that goes on, uh, I think that it should be a requirement that you speak the language. If I were to go over to France, I would do the same thing, right? I would learn the language if I wanted to move to France. Okay, there's nothing wrong with not knowing the language and visiting, but wanting to move and reside in a country, you should probably speak the primary language spoken in that country, so that way you're not damaging the environment of these workplaces. All right, I got to take a quick break, but we're going to come back and we're going to talk about Salt Lake City's new LGBTQ flags. These are the municipal flags. I'll be right back. Yes. So, yeah, we're going to get to that here shortly. Canada 51st state, where we can store all of our illegals. Yeah, at this point, I don't even know if the Canadians really want to be there. I think that they're going to wind up coming to the United States, most of them. And you've already begun to see this where they go through um, the legal, and I'd be all right with this, okay, because most of them speak the language. Now, they should assimilate, right? They shouldn't bring their, okay, fine, we'll let you keep your hockey, okay, but they shouldn't bring concepts of their country into the United States, okay? We should have some sort of commonality with our immigration population. Okay, when you don't have this commonality, whether you speak the same language or have the same religion, right? If you don't have these commonalities, then your workplaces are just going to be thrown into complete chaos because you have nothing in common with these people. And it just winds up becoming what the United States has kind of looked like, has become over time, these little pockets. So, like, um, these little pockets of little Mexico. Like, there's quite literally, I think the east side of Joliet is referred to this like as Little Mexico. Nobody speaks English over there. In this like little pocket of Joliet, east side of Joliet, there is no English speakers, nothing like that. It's Spanish. But there's also, in Chicago, like Asian speaking, and there are these little pockets all throughout America. And at that point, you don't have a country, you have multiple little countries inside of a country. Okay. And that's not the design, or should be the design, of of immigration. What we should be doing is making sure that our immigration population has a common goal, and the common goal of the American dream. I want to speak the language, I want to work an American job, and I want to assimilate to the American culture. I don't want to come into the country and create my own little country or be a part of this tiny little Mexico within United States. I would I would want to assimilate to the culture because I am attracted to the American culture. That's why I'm immigrating over here. Okay. If you just create Little Mexico and want to live in Little Mexico, you don't really want to live in America, do you? You want to live in Mexico, but you want to reap all of the benefits of our culture and the way we do things here. But you don't want to participate in that culture that breeds this success that America has. Okay, so good morning. Good morning. We are going to be getting to that story, Lisa. You should stick around. We're going to be getting to Ruth and how it pertains to this story. And I don't know why. Maybe the Holy Spirit's just pulling on my heart to share this with you. When I read this story, I just think about Ruth. I just taught this, and maybe that's why. Over the weekend at our women's ministry, I did a sourdough cooking class, and she goes back. Of course, Naomi, she arises and goes back to Israel because there's bread. And that, of course, means that God's favor has returned to Israel. And really, when you look at the story, I think that some can interpret, and I at least interpret this as they should have never left. And those decisions, they left for a pagan country. They left their problems. They didn't trust in God that He'd be there and provide during the famine. They fled. Okay, so I think that specifically Naomi's husband probably led this fleeing, and he steered the entire family wrong. He ultimately died, and the two boys died, right? So the two sons that they had died, which is just completely tragic. And then Naomi goes back to Israel. But like I said, there are tragic outcomes and consequences to your decisions. Doesn't mean that God won't come through for you in the end, but we understand this as Christian people. When we see the media go insane about this girl who was here illegally with her parents, and she was brought here when she was 4 years old, but she missed the DACA status, okay, because that wasn't a program. She missed it by a year, okay, so she didn't receive DACA. She's not a DACA recipient, okay, this 4-year-old girl who ultimately has grown up. She goes to college, everything like that. This is her parents' fault. It's their mom's fault. It's their dad's fault. Whoever brought her here. They never learned the language likely, and they brought their little girl here to grow up in these American schools, and she knows the language. And her parents probably have her translate a lot of the time, which is just complete bogus, if you ask me, because that's just putting so much pressure on your child. You've come to this country, you probably you didn't ever learn the language, right? And this is her parents' fault, okay, that they're all being deported now because they've been in the country, like I said, illegally since 2010, okay, so for over 10 years. They've been here in this country illegally. So I'm going to get to this story because you have to, be aware that this is now the media's darling golden goose deportation story. They've abandoned the Kilmar Abrego Garcia story, and now they're going to focus on this one. So here we go. Let's get going. I've got a couple of more stories this hour, so I want to hit them. Go ahead and find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Let's dig in today's stories. I do want to get to this LGBTQ flags. They're now the municipal flags at Salt Lake City. There's zero reason why a government entity should be designating official flags based on barely a fraction of the population, by the way. And let's remember, folks, the fraction of the population, just because these flags honor their insignificant bedroom preferences. Okay, so I don't know why we got here as a government entity, Salt Lake City, but whatever. So Salt Lake City, they have designated 2 LGBTQ flags to be flown. And this is, of course, in retaliation of this newly enacted state law that outlaws flying flags like this on public property. I think that this one mirrors the Idaho law, the Utah law, where they said, hey, all of the only flags you can do POW flags, you can do American flags, and that's about it, right? So that's it. That's the only type of flags that you get to fly, and those types of flags. You don't get to fly the LGBTQ flags and all of these various flags. Just fly the American flags. And I think that they allowed for POW flags and things like that. But they, out of retaliation, the city council, they're passing this ordinance, and they pass this ordinance to recognize LGBTQ flags, 2 of them, as municipal flags to be flown on public property. Take a listen to this here.
Each and every resident to look up at any flag that flies at City Hall and be reminded that their community values belonging and acceptance, and that their community values every one of them. Let the Sago Lily send a simple but powerful message. Salt Lake City is here for you. We believe in you, and we love you.
I'm sorry. Look, they're not going to dedicate a flag to straight men. Okay. So this whole each and every resident, we love you. We want you to feel welcomed. Okay. You don't really mean that. You only mean a tiny fraction of the population, not even a fraction of the population. This is tiny, tiny, tiny. And you're honoring their sexual preferences. So you're not going to fly a flag. We know it for straight men. Okay, you're not going to do it. And this is so pathetic that you think that you've done some sort of profound gesture when we all know that this is not profound. In fact, it's cringeworthy. It's shallow. It couldn't have been more shallow if you tried. And it's just downright unsettling. Okay, what they're doing here with these municipal flags. And it's not about inclusivity. In fact, it's exclusive because they're not going to be flying flags for the majority of the population, which would be straight men or straight women. Okay, so according to NBC, Salt Lake City adopted three new city flags. Sorry, I said two earlier. I think that there's 3 new city flags. They adopted them in an effort to circumvent, like I said, that Utah law. And the Utah law effectively banned LGBTQ pride flags or other flags being flown. Like, hey, just fly the American flag outside. And look, we pay for these places, these public properties with our American tax dollars. There's no reason why we should be flying anything but the American flag, to be honest with you. Because guess what? Everybody has a difference of opinion. Everybody has different sexual preferences. You're not going to be able to be inclusive enough to fly flags based off of people's insignificant birth traits or insignificant bedroom preferences. There's no way you can get it all. Okay, so just let's stop it with all these virtue signaling type flags. It doesn't really do anybody any good. In fact, it's just exclusive to a majority of the population. So that was Mayor Erin Mendenhall. Mendenhall. She is a Democrat. She had this proposal for the city council. They adopted it. And it incorporates the city's flags. It incorporates the city's flag into designs celebrating Juneteenth, LGBTQ rights, and trans rights. Okay, so they have a Juneteenth flag, they have a trans flag, they have a LGBTQ flag, whatever. Okay, so in March, Utah became the first state to make it illegal to fly such flags at public schools or public buildings. Okay, nobody cares if you're flying these at your house. Okay, these are government buildings, your tax dollars are going to it. And this is kind of triggering some outrage from Democrat officials that Utah banned this. Hey, our American tax dollars, everybody has a difference of opinion. You can't steal American taxpayer dollars and then put up these flags that have no, they don't want their money going to that. Okay, they have a difference of opinion. You can't take their money, buy these flags, and fly them on property, public property in which we pay for to keep the lights on and everything going. So, the law prohibits unsanctioned flag displays, as widely interpreted to ban flags celebrating various communities in Salt Lake City. So yeah, they're interpreting this as a ban on all flags, which it is. I mean, it is a ban. Salt Lake City is a blue spot in a socially and politically typically conservative Utah. Okay, so they're not the only city to pull something off like this. Salt Lake City, Boise is doing it. I talked about Idaho. They did the same thing this law. Boise, they passed a resolution recognizing the pride flag as an official city flag to circumvent the Idaho or the Idaho law that says that city, state, and federal flags should be flown outside of government buildings. So what they've done is they've made them official city flags, okay, so that they can continue to fly them. This is government pretending to honor all people, but ironically, it does this at the expense of the majority of population. So you're not honoring all people. Like I said, I didn't see any straight man flags up there, okay? And it's quite literally impossible to have a flag for everybody. Like, this is so exclusive, and it's pretty much the equivalent. And like I said, these people, they think that, your bedroom preferences aren't a choice, in that you are born this way, okay? And by that, this is logically equivalent to flying a flag because of somebody's eye color. Okay, if you truly do believe that this is a birth trait, okay, your sexual orientation is a birth trait, which I just think is ridiculous, but for argument's sake, that's logically equivalent to flying a flag for somebody's eye color, okay, or the fact that you're a twin or you have brown hair, whatever it is. None of this matters. None of it matters when you should be prioritizing, I don't know, your streets, your sewers. I could imagine that there's issues in Salt Lake City. I don't know what they are, but there's real issues and the government has real priorities, but they're taking time out of their day to spend it on this nonsense. But of course, they're liberals, and of course, they're going to do this because they're liberals. All right, I got to take a quick break. We're going to come back because guess what? The left is at it again. No longer is that their poster child is no longer Kilmar Abrego Garcia. They found a new one. Today's show is going to break down the deportation of Arias Cristobal. Okay, so this is their latest hoax, okay? And they're going to lie to you. They're going to say that, oh, they deported this woman and she looks very nice. And I'd imagine that the left took what I said a couple of weeks ago. If you guys had tuned in, I said, why Kilmar Abrego Garcia? Like, he's an MS-13 gang member. He's caught on body cam smuggling people into the country. He's also a wife beater, okay? Not by my own admission, but his wife, okay? His wife is the one who says that he's a wife beater, by the way. So why this guy? Why uplift him as your darling? Okay, why not choose somebody who's, here illegally but is like a good person? Because there are people out there who exist that are great people, but they're here illegally. And really, this is her mom's fault and her parents' fault because they moved from Mexico City to the Dalton area, which is about 30 miles from the Tennessee-Georgia border. So we're going to get into it. We're going to break it down. I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. I pledge allegiance to the flag. That is crazy. Yeah. Well, and it's just so, stupid. It's literally the most stupid thing I've ever seen in my life because we're not even really talking about a fraction of the people here. We're talking about a fraction of the population, okay? LGBT, people who identify as LGBTQ, okay? Only what is it? I don't even know what it is anymore. 1%, 7% of the population identifies as LGBTQ. And then on top of that, in Salt Lake City, I'm sure it's even smaller, okay? There's 10 people maybe in this whole city, but statistically speaking, that identify as LGBTQ. There might be 5 couples, okay, who identify, and ironically they're all workers of government, lol, or they're all public school teachers, who knows. But this is ridiculous. Why don't you fly a straight man flag, come up with a flag and fly it for the straight men? And that would actually be more inclusive in that you're not excluding a majority of the population. But this has nothing to do with we see you, we love you, we want to honor you by flying a flag. It has nothing to do with that. This is just virtue signaling crap, and it's a way to divert your attention from the real issues, which would be your water, your sewer systems, your roads, your fire, your police. This is a way to divert your attention from what the government's priority should be. So yeah, we're going to get to that story, but we're also going to get to Jasmine Crockett this morning because she says that you're inherently violent, by the way. She says that you're aligned with the KK2. If you're a Trump supporter, okay, you're inherently violent, okay, if you're on the right or if you're a Republican. She says that you're inherently violent. Oh, and you're aligned with the KKK as well. I do also want to get to this male pitcher. I was watching the video, and this is in Tim Walz' state of Minnesota. I was watching the video of this male pitcher. Now, I played softball. This kid has such an arm on him, and he has been striking out. I think the batting average, so people who bat up against him, it's 12% or something like that. But he's transgender, and the Democrats are totally okay with that. In fact, I don't think a lot of people know that he's trans, or at least they don't want to admit that he's trans. He's not really publicly open about it, and he is seeking, obviously, he's in high school, he's seeking recruiters. He's got applications out there for colleges. He wants to be recruited to a softball team in college. And he's not open particularly about the whole trans thing, him being transgender. But it's clear. I mean, he's like 6 foot, okay? And when you see these pictures, it's insane. So we're going to get to that here this morning as well. Smash straight men fly their flag all of the time. Yeah, because they interpret. I mean, you're exactly right. Here's what they say to my argument here. Why aren't you flying the straight man flag? They'll say that the American flag is the straight man flag, which is not true. It's the American flag. We pay it with the American dollar, our tax dollars, for those flags, for those public offices that they all sit in every single day and twiddle their thumbs or do whatever the hell it is, play on their Nintendo Switches because they're children. Government, they're all a bunch of children who never grew up and they were weirdos and nobody ever liked them and they've never created anything in their life and they're decided to get into the public sector because God forbid you actually create something or sell something or do something, right? You're just going to force your services on people who services that people don't utilize or don't really want, right? But while they're up there in their ivory towers, you're slaving away and your tax dollars are going to pay them, pay for the building, pay for the flagpole, pay for the damn flags. Okay. The least they can do is keep this crap neutral. Okay. The flag should all be neutral, and the best neutral flag out there, which is what the state law reflects, is the American damn flag. Okay. And I think some veteran flags, things like that. Your state flag can be flown as well. These are neutral things. You reside in the state that can be flown. You are a Utah resident. Okay, that's something that you can't really argue about. You are an American, and it's a unity. So when they say that Republicans are divisive, no, these people are divisive because they constantly got to put people in categories, and it's just like, look, we're all Americans. We all live in Utah. Let's just fly the Utah flag and the American flag. Like, that's it. Sorry about that. Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Capital Cities 92.9, the news and talk Bloomington Normal. Yes, I do want to get to a few of these stories, national stories that took place over the weekend. Kilmar Abrego Garcia, he is no longer the poster child for illegal immigration. Well, that's not like super trendy because guess what, folks? I called that. Well, they probably listened to my show a couple of weeks ago because I said, why would you choose Kilmar? And I gave them this, the leftists. I shouldn't have done this. I always do this. I try to help the left because they're so helpless. You know what I mean? So I gave them this idea, and here we are. I said, why choose Kilmar Abrego Garcia? He's got MS-13 gang tattoos. He's quite literally a wife beater by his wife's admission. He was caught on body cam smuggling people into the country. I mean, like, not the nicest fella. Why would you, like, die on the hill of Kilmar Abrego Garcia and try to bring him back from an El Salvador prison? Why didn't you choose an illegal immigrant? And I know they exist, who are actually nice, decent people. So they've done so with Arisa Cristobal. She seems to be very sweet and went to college, but this is their latest immigration hoax story, as I like to call it. There's going to be another one. They're going to keep doing this until the 2028 election, the presidential election, because that's just what they do. They're going to try to get you to because the top issue for 2024 was immigration, illegal immigration, and open borders. People don't like it, and they're going to try to chip away at your principles, your principle surrounding sovereignty. You want to be a sovereign nation, which means you are a nation, and it's not just a free for all, right? Where everybody's like, there are no borders, there are no lines. They want to chip away at that ideology you hold, although that is a righteous ideology that you want the country to be a sovereign country and an actual country and not a one world. Okay, globalism. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of nationalism. did Kat just say that? She did. So Gilmar Garcia, definitely not the poster child. Why the hell would you choose him? He's not nice. Okay, so they finally found somebody who appears to be a decent person. And they're going to lie to you about this, okay? And that's why I want to bring this up this morning, because the left, they want you to believe that this is just a college student who was wrongly deported for taking the wrong turn or whatever. And that couldn't be further from the truth. The truth is, her and her family were here in this country. They disregarded the immigration laws for 10 years. They had 10 years to figure this thing out and to go through the legal channel, but they didn't. The family has been living in this country illegally for a decade, and they never tried to obtain a lawful citizenship status, to be naturalized. Oh, they had plenty of time to do so here, folks. Plenty of time. And that's what the left is so good at. They play on your emotions and they act like you don't have any empathy, and they try to guilt you and say, oh, how could you not care? I have plenty of empathy. I have empathy for the American worker who pays taxes, and their employment opportunities are taken away, just like I told you about in Canada. It's going to get to that point, folks. There's 65% of people in Canada who say, hey, Canada, please stop taking. We don't like this. Stop taking 500,000 newcomers every single year. We're going to get to that point, folks, where there are no employment opportunities, and where a country is probably going to give tax or breaks or money kickbacks to employers who hire non-Americans, and they're going to discriminate based on a nationality. So yes, I do have empathy. I have empathy for the American worker who pays taxes, and I do have empathy for this girl because her parents wronged her. Okay, that's what it really boils down to. Is her parents, when she was only 4 years old, she had no say in the matter. They moved from Mexico City to an area where it's 30 miles from the Tennessee-Georgia border. This is our parents' fault. And I want to get to this because you ultimately, as parent, your actions have ripple effects. Okay. And I actually taught this book over the weekend on Saturday for women's ministry. It's the Book of Ruth, and I do this once in a while, but it just is just so spot on. And I can tear down a leftist anytime they say, "Oh, illegal immigration is condoned in the Bible or promoted in the Bible." That's just not true. Naomi and her husband. When you look at the Book of Ruth, this is the first chapter. It's a really quick read, probably like a minute or so. Naomi and her husband, Elimelech, and I'm probably butchering that, so it's just chill. Okay, they took their family from Bethlehem to Moab during a time of famine. Okay, so I'd imagine, in 2010, Arissa Cristobal, this is the girl that is the poster child of the left now, no longer Gilmar Garcia. She was a college student. In 2010, when she was 4 years old, I'd imagine they came to the United States from Mexico City because it's better economically. Okay, I'd imagine that's why they came in the first place. And this has consequences. Okay, so I'm going to go and kind of explore Naomi's husband and their family. They took their family from Bethlehem to Moab during a time of famine, economic hardship. Okay, I'd imagine Mexico City was probably not in an economically sound. It never probably has ever been economically sound place. But instead of dealing with that in their country, they decided to come and flee to a different country. And it's amazing. I'll be right back. We're going to talk about that here next on Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Hey, go ahead, smash this like button, smash the likes button. Deport her criminal. Yeah, honestly, I don't know. I haven't seen too much out of this story. I'm going to be honest with you. It just seems like they're propping her up. She looks like a college student. She looks kind of nice. But she's illegal. Okay, her country can't. She's older right now. She knows that she's in the country illegally, which, yes, she is a criminal. We have to deport her. We are taxed to death. Exactly. I agree 100%. I'm not saying that we shouldn't have deported her. And my whole thing is her parents, it's really her parents' fault. And later, as she got older and turned 18, she should have realized that, hey, I need to go through the proper channels. There must be something I could do to at least get a temporary status, a student visa, something. But there were no attempts, okay, by her, this family, no attempts to be legal citizens or become a citizen of this country in 10 years. There were 0 attempts. Okay, so they just stayed here for 10 years and broke the law for 10 years. So we're going to get to this here in just a second, but we're also going to get to Jasmine Crockett. Smash that like button. I'm going to take a quick break, but I'll be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Subscribe to the channel today. Welcome to the Red Kingdom. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9, the News and Talk Bloomington Normal. So do appreciate you tuning in the Monday after Mother's Day. Are you basking in yesterday's hugs, flowers, and maybe had too many slices of pie like me? We hope you had the chance to celebrate your incredible mom, grandma, stepmoms, mentors, mother figures in your life. If you're a mom yourself, I am sending you an extra special thank you today. Thanks for being a great mom. Now, I do want to get into today's show, but first, cities92.9.com or 929.com. Okay, type that in right now and go nominate a farmer. Okay, Feed the Farmers is back along with Corn Belt Energy, Good Guys at Parker Chevy, Compare Financial, Linco Precision El Paso. We are feeding the farmers again this year. It's real simple. We do this every year. You just go to cities929.com, type that in your search bar, and then you nominate a farmer that you love, preferably one that you love, maybe one that you don't love so much. We will deliver Freaky Fast Jimmy John sandwiches to them out in their fields while they're working. This is a great way. Thank you to the farmers who keep us fed all year round. I also want to tell you a little bit about a Caribbean cruise from Expedia Cruises. Okay, we're giving this away, and this is the best giveaway Cities 92.9 has ever done. You can register for the cruise and become a finalist during our cruise stops this spring. We will be taking entries and drawing 2 finalists at each of these stops. You win a prize pack, and then you qualify for our grand prize giveaway on June 26th at the New Smash House Tavern in Bloomington. You got to be 21 years of age to register. We draw 2 finalists at each stop. The first finalist within the first 30 minutes, and then the second finalist within the last hour of our 2-hour broadcast. The next place we're going to be, Eagles Club from 5 to 7, May 16th. That's Friday, folks. So write this down with a green crayon if you have to. Pull it out. Write it down. Eagles Club, Main Street, Bloomington, Friday, May 16th from 5 to 7 p.m. Be there. And this is your chance to win a Caribbean cruise, okay? So this is the best giveaway we've ever done. And then, get this, we're going to be Tuesday, May 20th, running errands, on West Locust in Bloomington from 6 to 8 p.m. So if you got your green crayon handy, write this down. Running errands, Locust, Bloomington from 6 to 8 on May 20th. That's a Tuesday. Wednesday, May 21st, we're back. Jack's Cafe in Leroy. I'll be there. I'm really excited. From 9 to 11 a.m. You're going to want to be there for breakfast. Our first drawing is going to be at 9:30 a.m. So you're going to want to come out to Jack's Cafe on Wednesday, May 21st. Write that down with your green crayon from 9 to 11 a.m. All right, let's get into today's show, shall we? All right. Before we took the break, I was telling you a little bit about the poster child or the new toy of the media. Okay, that's what I like to call these people, or this woman. They're using her essentially, and the left is great at that, using illegal immigrants for slave labor. They're not the compassionate ones, as I told you. It's actually compassionate to enforce legal immigration, because once they're here in the country illegally, their status can be weaponized against them, specifically by employers who want to exploit their labor. Okay, so before I took the break, I was telling you a little bit about Arisa Cristobal. Okay, so this is the left's new media darling. They got rid of Kilmar Abrego Garcia because it turned out he was an MS-13 gang member. Turned out that he was caught on body cam footage smuggling humans into the country. It also turned out that his wife called him a wife beater. Okay, so they play on your emotions, the left, and they try to guilt you into making you think that you're not empathetic, that you don't care. I know that you care. You actually have empathy probably for the American worker, for the taxes, for legal immigrants who came to this country, went through this process, and assimilated to the culture and work hard, and their taxes are now going to these people who just have broken the law for 10 plus years. Okay, so here's the real story. According to the New York Post, 2010, Arisa Cristobal was brought into the United States illegally by her parents when she was only 4 years old. They moved from Mexico City to a Dalton area, which is about 30 miles from the Tennessee-Georgia border. This is her parents' fault, 100%. It's her parents' fault, but then she got older and she's in college now, so she's not 4 years old anymore, okay, and she's being deported. She's in college. Once you get older, you have to realize, okay, am I a legal citizen or not? I should probably get like a student visa or temporary status or something, right? But none of her parents did this. They didn't do this. The whole family just decided, hey, we're going to go and we're going to be illegally residing in the United States and not go through the proper vetting process, and we're just going to stay here. So At 4 years old, it was definitely her parents' fault. And most likely, our parents have probably never learned the language. These types of people are usually the worst types because they put a lot of pressure on their kids because they don't want to assimilate to the culture. And most people who come through the country illegally have no respect for American culture. They've got no respect for this country. They come here illegally, and especially if they reside and continue to break those laws for 10 years after the fact. This goes to show me they've got zero respect for America. They didn't assimilate. Most likely her parents don't speak English, and she speaks and translates English for her parents. And like, totally terrible. What a burden and what a pressure that they've put on their child now, being the only American English speaker. But this reminds me of a story, and I don't do this often, but this was like something I taught over the weekend at my women's ministry. And, Naomi being the mother-in-law to Ruth, Ruth clung to Naomi to go back to Israel. You guys might know the story, but this is really interesting because Naomi's husband, Elimelech, like, I'm probably messing up his name, I'm sorry, but her husband took the whole family from Bethlehem during the time of famine. Okay, there was a time of famine, and he took them to Moab, a country where they worshipped gods. Okay, multiple gods, like a pagan-esque type country. Okay, Moab. Now, this shows a lack in trust in God. Many interpret this move from the husband, the whole family, as a lack of faith. Instead of trusting in God that he'd provide during the famine, he fled to a foreign land with pagan influences. Okay, so there's consequences to your bad decisions. And this is how I kind of interpret it. Him and his two sons died. So the husband and the two sons died in Moab. Okay, so some see this as a divine judgment or at least a tragic outcome due to the poor decision to move and showing this lack of trust in God. They all served the God of Israel, but they moved. And this goes to show you there's ripple effects to your decision making, okay, on your children. Okay, these children died. Husband died. Naomi's left with her daughters-in-law because her sons ultimately got married to Moab women. Okay, so God used, obviously, this tragedy to bring Ruth closer. So Naomi, her husband, and her two sons died. There's a daughter and two daughter-in-laws. There's Ruth and Oprah. Ruth, she goes back to Israel with Naomi, and they go back because there's bread in the house, right? Bread in the house, God. And she becomes, later the ancestor, great grandmother, I believe, don't quote me on that, King David, and of course, out of that lineage, Jesus. So eventually becoming the ancestor of King David and Jesus, Ruth. So obviously the move was used by God. So this, from a faith-based standpoint, somebody could argue that the husband should have trusted God and stayed in Bethlehem. However, there were tragic outcomes to this. He died along with his two sons, but God can work through questionable decisions all of the time and bring about redemption. That's why I don't feel too bad for this woman, because I know there is a redemption story, hopefully for her. And hopefully, she digs her heels in to the God, right? To God, the God of Israel, right? But she was transported to Whitfield County Jail. This woman, she was a college student, right? And she was transported. This is a partner of the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement 287G program. So she was transferred there, and this county jail is used to identify illegal aliens in the country. So this is where she received her due process. Okay. Are you here in the country illegally? Let's vet you. Do you have any student visas? No. Okay. So now you're going to be deported. She wasn't on the DACA program. She actually came to the country a year after the program ended. So really, really unfortunate for her at 4 years old. And like I said, the fault of her parents, and unfortunately, her parents' poor decision-making led to terrible tragedy where she is now going to be deported. But, I mean, she is of age. She should have gone, got a student visa. She went to college. She should have stayed on some sort of temporary status while she was here in the country, but she didn't, made no moves to do so. And according to Hannah Jones, this is a woman, I guess, that the girl babysat for, Arias Cristobal, babysat for in the past. She said that she wasn't eligible for the DACA program, and she was brought to the country a year after the program ended. So all of our actions have consequences. The left just wants to absolve or forgive ultimately this victim group, or like they want to get you to forgive and be empathetic to these people who are victims, but they do this to themselves. Okay, like I said, actions have consequences. Poor decision making has consequences, and it's not to say that they can't have this awesome redemption story and some good come out of these poor decision making and these consequences that happened. It's not to say that something won't happen that's great for this Arisa Cristobal woman, and I hope that it does. But at the end of the day, your actions have consequences. Okay, it's a tragedy. It's a tragic outcome that you were deported and you can't stay here after 10 years of being here. After multiple years of being here. It's sad, but like that's the consequences of your, not only your actions but your parents' actions. And the idea that someone can come here illegally and it affects no one but themselves couldn't be less true, by the way. Okay, you come here illegally, it affects everything in our immigration system. It affects you as a taxpayer, and ultimately, if you're a child and you're brought here illegally, it affects you in multiple and substantial ways, because now you've committed a crime, and it's not really, your fault. Well, at some point it becomes your fault because she is an adult and, going through college, you have to know that you're an illegal citizen, right? Unless your parents lied to you. I don't know. But yes, it affects you. Illegal immigration affects you. That's my point here. I do want to get to a few other things this hour. What are we talking about? Well, I'm excited because we are going to be talking about Jasmine Crockett. She says that Republicans are inherently violent. Interesting. She also says that Republicans are aligned with the KKK. No, that's the Democrat Party, actually. And I'll break it down for you fact by fact by fact. So I also want to get to this male pitcher who is in Tim Walz's state of Minnesota. It's this high school pitcher, and I try to stay away from these stories because they're just kids, and it's really like tough for me to deliver these types of stories because he's a kid. But ultimately, he's a cheater. Okay, this high school boy, he is dominating in girls softball, and he says he's trans. So the Democrats are okay with this type of cheating because he says he's trans, he's 6 foot, and he has, so I guess the batting percentage here is like 12%. So he pitches and the girls only hit it like 12% of the time, his pitches, which is insane. So I'm going to be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat Cities 92.9. Hey, go ahead, smash that like button, share this out. Where am I from? I am from Wilmington, Illinois. I lived in Bloomington for 7-8 years, and then I moved to Lincoln with my husband eventually. So Illinois is where I'm from. And I love America. I love immigration. I really do. People might not think so, but there has got to be a way we do immigration, and it used to be this way where you wanted to assimilate to the culture, where you wanted to speak the language, and you actually liked the American culture. That's why you wanted to be here. Having these pockets of multiculturalism or whatever, allowing your culture to bleed over into the United States is not something that we should condone in our immigration system. That's why we have a system. And it's not just a free-for-all. Because if you don't have, at the end of the day, anything in common. So, for example, if I had a neighbor, so I love my neighbors, they're great people. If I had a neighbor who I couldn't speak the same language with, we didn't have the same religion or same values or same understanding of, hey, we're both Americans. We both go to a job. We both work hard for our family. At the end of the day, we put food on the table. We've got a fence. We've got a dog. You know what I mean? If we didn't like that kind of lifestyle, we would have nothing in common and we would be at each other's throats. Okay, just like a marriage, right? Any relationship you have, if you have nothing in common with somebody, you're going to constantly be at each other's throats. So if you're constantly at each other's throats, there's going to be divisiveness, chaos, crime, all of that comes from no commonality. And really our immigration process should be where we find people who want those shared interests with the American people, and they should assimilate. And there's nothing wrong with saying that. Multiculturalism is straight up evil, okay? Because it condones not all cultures are equal. That's what it is. Multiculturalism is the belief that all cultures are equal, and they're not. To break it to you lightly, they're not. So this whole multiculturalism center at ISU just completely false to try to say that all cultures are equal. They're not, because some cultures believe in crazy things. For example, or what we deem as crazy, okay, what they deem as normal, we would deem it as nuts. For example, pooping in the streets is a pretty common cultural thing in India, okay? That just looks it up. Look it up. Okay, in India, public defecation is not something that is frowned upon. Here in the United States, we frown upon that. Okay, eating dogs, cats in other parts of the world, rats, not something seen as not something that's seen as wrong. We see that as wrong, and it's something that is bled over actually from the Judeo-Christian Bible. I know I've been talking about this before, and people say, "Oh, the New Testament got rid of that." No, there's a lot of things that have continued to bleed over into our culture from the Old Testament. And just because the New Testament is there doesn't mean that we completely just ignore what's written in the Old Testament, by the way. Okay. But in the Old Testament, there's all kinds of food rules, and our American health inspectors and inspections to restaurants and grocery stores, and all of that is biblical. Unclean food, right? We don't eat dogs. We don't eat anything with paws, right? That's usually a good rule of thumb. Anything with paws is a no-go here in America, usually. And of course, we don't do the same things that, were laid out in the Old Testament. They've, kind of been watered down slightly over time. But for the most part, most of that still exists in this Judeo country, or Judeo-Christian country. Okay, so that, but then there's also, for example, if your dog gets out and bites somebody, usually it used to be, and now probably in Illinois they don't allow for it anymore, because my poor pit bull that I adopted and don't train or whatever, and nothing against pit bulls, but if you don't train your dog and it gets out and bites somebody, I mean, we have rules for that. If it's an aggressive dog, you got to put the dog down. Okay. Animal control will come, take the dog, put the dog down if the dog is out there biting people. Okay. That's actually laid out in Leviticus. It talks about that, and our rules and our laws, all of it comes from Old Testament. So that's bled over into our culture. So, like I said, I think that the religious element, the fact that our country is founded on the Holy Bible and our laws are derived from that, I think that we're different than other countries, like where their culture ultimately comes from religions like Hinduism, Islamic faith, Buddhism. A lot of these different things don't have what we have. And that's not to say, it's like, okay, they're not equal. And I would say that they're worse than our culture. And you might have a different opinion. That's okay. But we want you to assimilate here. Hey, go ahead and smash that like button on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. We do this for you to provide you, extra content. And if you miss the show on the radio, we provide you the YouTube channel. The shows are archived there. You can subscribe to the channel. We're also on Rumble. Just in case the show gets taken down. Some of them do, but we're on Rumble, and we've archived the shows for you. All we ask in return is that you subscribe and that you share this out with your friends, because people need to know about the stuff that's going on in the world today, which leads me to Jasmine Crockett. Yay! No, not really. Hey, especially this is crazy. She is actually coming out and she's saying that Republicans are inherently violent. Okay. And then she says that we're aligned with the KKK too, which is really, really fascinating because actually the Democrat Party is actually very aligned with the KKKs, the Ku Klux Klan. She's got to be the dumbest woman in Congress. She actually says the Republican Party is aligned with the KKK. So let's take a listen here to Jasmine Crockett, this clip, and then we're going to get into a couple of other things this morning. I do want to get to this Minnesota softball player, high school. He's just cheating and cheating and cheating. Really, there's no other way to put it. He's transgender and he's thrown these fast pitches that the girls can't hit, and he is dominating in girls softball. But it's okay because he's trans, as the Democrats would say. Here's Jasmine Crockett talking about how Republicans are inherently violent and that they are related or aligned with the KKK.
They try to act like, oh, political violence, it's the Democrats and it's the liberals. And it's like, actually, I mean, I'm not going to say that like a left-leaning person cannot be violent, because that would be like crazy to say that somebody can't be. But baby, y'all got the white supremacists galore, okay? Like all of them. You got the Proud Boys, you got the neo-Nazis. You have people that literally should be classified as domestic terrorists, because a lot of times that is what they are doing. They're engaging in domestic terrorism. And guess what? They all align with your side. Yeah, including the KKK. So like, I mean, this is who aligns with that. So like inherently in like who you are, y'all are violent. Like y'all, and most of your violence has to do with people that's got a little bit of melanin. But nevertheless, like y'all are a violent group of people. Like you attract violent actors. And like, I'm sorry, I know they tried to make Black Lives Matter out to be the most violent. What about Black Lives Matter? No. So
I'm sorry I did that to you this morning. Okay, one of the ways the Democrat Party attempts to stray away from its racist roots is by making up this lie that they switched parties or somehow the party switched, which is just not true. They fought a war to keep slavery legal in the South, the Southern Democrats. Despite the Republican Party, the origin of the Republican Party, Abraham Lincoln, right? Really, the Republican Party was formed to end this evil act. And I guess that she didn't get the memo that the Republican Party was actually formed to end the evil act of slavery. And at this point, it's unclear. I don't know. Don't ask me if she's stupid or if she's a pathological liar. I don't know. That clip proves that it could be both. So she says domestic terrorism. I have yet to see an example of this domestic terrorism she talks about from the Republican Party. And she says that, and she slanders half the least you could do is give me one example, just one. What, the QAnon shaman, January 6th, is that your example? Please tell me that's your example, because he was ushered in by Capitol Police, and he was only guilty of a guided tour, going on a guided tour with Capitol Police and wearing a funny hat. Okay, so like if that's your example of domestic terrorism, please give me an example. And that's the least you could do for me, Jasmine Crockett. If you're going to align an entire political party with the KKK, are you insane? And does she not realize that the KKK was actually created and so extended into almost every southern state by 1870? And became a vehicle for white Southern resistance to the Republican Party restriction era. So after the, ending of slavery, the KKK came about because it was a Southern resistance, a Southern Democrat resistance to the Republican Party, and it was the Reconstruction era, policies aimed at establishing political and economic equality for Black Americans. Okay, so the KKK was actually the resistance to the Republican Party, who was trying to create policy after the freedom of the slaves. With the Emancipation Proclamation, thank you, Abe, Republican. Okay, so like quite literally, the Democrats are aligned with the KKK because they were the resistance to the Republican Party policies where they were trying to politically and economically provide equality for Black Americans. So according to history, the History Channel, right? History.com. And I like to use left-leaning sources a lot of the time because this helps argue my point. Are you going to argue with the History Channel? Okay, go ahead. Don't argue with me. Argue with the History Channel, because it says right here, quote, its members waged an underground campaign of intimidation and violence directed at white and black Republican leaders. Okay, this is talking about the KKK. Though Congress passed legislation to curb the Klan terrorism, the organization saw its primary goal, the reestablishment of white supremacy, fulfilled through Democratic victories in state legislatures across the South in the 1870s. So what does that mean? Well, the KKK went as far as to lobby, okay? They went and they lobbied across all these Democrat Southern states in the 1870s, and they had some victories in these state legislatures across the South to ultimately secure their goal here of white supremacy. To that was their primary goal, was to reestablish white supremacy, and they had victories in the state legislatures across the South in the 1870s. But there were federal propositions in proposals, legislation to curb this domestic terrorist group. Isn't it so funny how history repeats itself? Like, so hilarious. In the 1870s, Republican state governments in the South turned to Congress for help. Okay, so there were Republican states, and we had these Southern Republican states in the South that were dealing with this domestic terrorist group called the KKK, right? And they were like reaching out to Congress for help. Hey, we really need your federal power here. We need to shut this group down because they're lobbying our state governments, and they're actually establishing white supremacy. And this whole like these systems are inherently racist, whatever. This comes from the Democrat Party. The systems are inherently racist, and they are because of the Democrat Party, if you want to argue that point. So it's so they passed the Congress. They turned to help Republican states because they were sick of the KKK lobbying these states and installing white supremacy in their legislatures. So the Republican states turned to Congress, and this resulted in what's called the Three Enforcement Acts, the strongest of which was against the Ku Klux Klan. So they were going after the Ku Klux Klan at a federal level, the KKK, by Republican states, governments. These state governments went to the federal government. They said, please do more to curb the Ku Klux Klan terrorism. They keep lobbying our states down here in the South, and we don't want white supremacy here, these Republican controlled states. So my point is here, folks, the KKK is 100% tied to the Democrat Party. Like, not even not even a point to be argued anymore. I got to take a quick break, but you're listening to Conservative Cat. They think Abe Lincoln was a Democrat. And it's so funny because the history is repeating itself. So like I said, the KKK, these domestic terrorist groups, Black Lives Matter, they've just gotten smart about their wording. Okay, the Democrats, they want to say that the party switched. They didn't. What the Black Lives Matter group does, they've gotten so good at this. Okay, and instead of installing white supremacy overtly, they're doing it inadvertently. So the Black Lives Matter group is the same thing as the KKK. There, I said it. Okay, so Black Lives Matter, they lobby their governments, their state governments, typically their Democrat governments, to install legislation and policy that inherently will keep the black man down and uplift the white man. Okay, they've gotten so good, the Democrat Party, over years, they've conditioned these people, usually the Black Lives Matter nonprofit organizations. Okay, these nonprofit organizations are quite literally domestic terrorist groups. Okay, and they're trying to keep black people at the bottom and uplift global elitists, okay, who are white. Okay, so they've just gotten really good at enslaving these people who are in these domestic terrorist groups And they've pretty much gotten these people to hate their own race legislatively. Okay, so things like, for example, Black Lives Matter and welfare type looking programs. Okay, those types of programs will inherently keep the Black man down and reliant on the elitist. Okay, the master being government. Okay, so they have these domestic terrorist groups go out, cause all this destruction, sow all this division. We saw it in 2020. Okay, the riots. Okay, burning things down. Who does that sound like? The KKK. They've just gotten good at convincing the Black Lives Matter, these elitists who happen to be white, by the way, who are uplifted by this organization. They like Governor J.B. Pritzker, like George Soros. Okay, that these are things that come, or billionaires that come to mind, progressive billionaires. Okay, they're being uplifted all of the time. Your Bill Gates types of people. Okay, funneling money into these nonprofit organizations and subsidizing the poor. Okay, and Black Lives Matter, they go and they lobby these state governments, and they lobby for legislation that inherently will always keep them down. Okay, legislation that will tax them into oblivion and tax you and me into oblivion to uplift a little bit the subsidized poor slightly, okay, just enough to get them to keep coming back to the masters, which are the elitist government. So, like, it's still going on. The Democrat Party, it just looks a little bit different. They've gotten craftier with their words, and they've convinced now at this point the Black American population to keep themselves down. Like, it's almost like Stockholm syndrome, okay? And it's been years in the making, where the Democrat Party started out with like overtly enslaving them, overtly advocating for white supremacy legislation and policies at the state level. The feds had to come in, the Republican feds and the Republican state legislatures had to come and say, hey, you know, feds, help us out. There's this push from the Democrat state legislatures and the KKK lobbying these state legislatures to install white supremacy policies. We need help, right? The Republican states in the South went to the federal government, who was Republican controlled, and the Republicans were like, okay, we're going to try to combat and install legislation that combats and curbs the Ku Klux Klan, goes after the KKK. So eventually it was dismantled, but they got smarter, the Democrat Party. They were like, okay, so we can't do this overtly, so we're going to do this in secret almost, okay? And we're going to get crafty with our language, and we're going to get the Black population to do it themselves, to enslave themselves, and we're not going to do it overtly. We're going to do it in the shadows, and we're going to keep them down legislatively, but they're going to be the ones lobbying for it. Black Lives Matter is going to be the ones lobbying for it. You know, and we're going to name it Black Lives Matter. And they've just gotten crafty. Okay. They still are the racist scumbags that they were in the 1870s and the 1800s. They're still racist scum. Okay. It just looks a little different now because they got smart. And anyway, so the KKK undoubtedly was tied to the Democrat Party and its policies, and the Republicans were the ones trying to stop these people from committing acts of violence against Black Americans. And the fact that she blames Republicans proves how objectively stupid she is, or I don't know what a pathological liar she is. She either knows this or she just is so stupid. Like I said, 100%, I think it's comical that she actually said that Republicans are inherently violent and they are aligned with the KKK, because this is verifiably false. We can go back in history and look at the things that happened. The Republican state legislatures, they fought with the federal government that was Republican controlled to shut down the KKK and to shut down these white supremacy policies, the reestablishment of white supremacy. Hey, go ahead. Find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. And as always, folks, we're giving away like these great giveaways all of the time on cities929.com. So you guys are going to want to check it out. The latest and the greatest, in my opinion, is this Caribbean cruise. So deluxe Caribbean cruise from Expedia Cruises and Normal. You can register at one of our various cruise stops coming up this spring. And we are going to be taking entries, drawing 2 finalists at every cruise stop. You win a prize pack, and then you qualify for a spot at our grand prize giveaway, which is going to be on June 26th. So head to cities929.com, grab a green crayon right now and write this down. Friday, May 16th, Eagles Club from 5 to 7. We're going to be drawing for our finalists there. And then Tuesday, May 20th, running errands from 6 to 8. Our first drawing there is going to be at 6:30. You have to be present to win, and you have to be 21. And we are always adding stuff. So head on to cities929.com and click on the Deluxe Caribbean Cruise from Expedia Cruises, and you'll find all the information there on how to qualify for this giveaway, this grand prize giveaway on the 26th. All right. I do want to talk a little bit about, before we took the break, I was telling you about how the KKK was undoubtedly, like, there's no argument, the KKK was tied to the Democrat Party, okay? And I got this from the History Channel, okay? And they talk about how Congress, they had tried to pass they passed legislation that designated the Ku Klux Klan as a domestic terrorist group, and they went after the organization whose primary goal was to reestablish, after, of course, the freedom of the slaves, they wanted to reestablish white supremacy. And the KKK, they were lobbyist groups, okay, that lobbied southern state legislatures to try to get them to pass legislation in the South that reestablished white supremacy. Okay, so there were Democrat states that were doing this on behalf of the white supremacists, the KKK members. Okay, so in 1870, Republican state governments, they were like, whoa, and they were in the South. They saw their neighbors and the Democrat-led state governments. They were passing this legislation, and they said, whoa, we need help. We don't want our neighboring state to have white supremacy laws. We want to go to the federal government, Republican-controlled, and that resulted in the passage, and you guys can look this up, the 3 enforcement acts, and the strongest of that act was the Ku Klux Klan Act of 1871, which went after the Ku Klux Klan and dismantled it, right? So there is no fighting me on this. The KKK is actually aligned with the Democrat Party. Like, historically, it's documented, like... I mean, she tries to blame the Republicans and say that they're aligned with the KKK. That's just so totally false. And it's not known whether, she's mentally competent, I would say, Crockett. But she's beating everybody's expectations here. Like, she's got to be one of the stupidest, dumbest members of Congress. How do you not know? Like, you came out with this accusation that the Republican Party is aligned with the KKK. How do you not know this history? Like, it's very clear that the KKK was aligned with Southern white Democrats in Southern states that passed legislation to reestablish white supremacy after the freedom of the slaves, which was done by the Emancipation Proclamation, one of Abraham Lincoln's greatest hits. Okay, the greatest hit of Abraham Lincoln, who was a Republican president. Okay, and it's comical how she sits here and she says, like, the Republicans are inherently violent. Do I have to pull up all of the beatings that took place during the 2020 riots and the burnings? And not to mention, it was one of the most expensive insurance claims years in American history was the year of 2020 with the BLM riots. Okay, so mathematically, they're more violent. Okay, and they're inherently violent, the left. So it's extremely comical that she says that the right attracts violence. Like, who's the most violent? Give me an example. If she's going to come out with these types of claims, you have to come correct and with an example. And the best I've ever seen the left come up with as far as, like, Republicans being violent, and an example would be January 6th. And now we know that January 6th, like, all of them, like, had maybe misdemeanors, trespassing, but even then, a lot of them were led into the Capitol by Capitol Police and FBI agents that were there. So like their biggest offense was wearing a funny hat and being misled by Capitol Police. Like you can't say that they're violent if they were being let in, and like they weren't supposed to be in the Capitol at that time, and they were like, "Oh, you're trespassing." That's not even violent acts. Okay, so anyway, it's a shame that she's playing this game, and she has to accept. Jasmine Crockett and Democrats like her, listen up if you're a Dem. You have to accept that your party is the party of the KKK, and it continues to be. So it's interesting how history repeats itself. They've just gotten crafty, and they've gotten the Black population, Black Americans, to contribute to their own oppression. Okay, the elitists at the tippity top, they keep subsidizing the poor Black community. Okay, these nonprofit organizations, and they've got a job, and the nonprofit organization, the Black Lives Matter nonprofit organization, and I've got a job, but they pay me like, I don't know, $10 to go out there and to go set fire to things. Okay, they're contributing to set fire to Black-owned businesses, by the way. That happened in 2020. They're contributing to their own oppression, and they've gotten the Black community to do that in the form of these non-government organizations, which lobby the government, these nonprofit organizations, to tax the people, all people, white, Black, Asian, doesn't matter, into oblivion, which contributes to their oppression. And things like welfare programs continues to their oppression, because they're always going to keep looking to the elitist master for the pennies, okay, that they give them in the form of taxes, your taxes, my taxes, the pennies. And I wouldn't even say it's really necessarily Black, white at this point. The Democrat Party has gotten so good, they've been able to just do it at lower class in a higher class. I mean, that's where we're at this point. But they've gotten good at this, and over the years, it's just changed. And they've just changed their wording a little bit. And Crockett, she can make up all the lies she wants, but the sooner she realizes that her party is the KKK and they are aligned with the KKK, the better off she's going to be. Whatever she is to keep doing, to keep lying, she's lying to herself to keep her asleep at night. She needs to have a really great awakening and realize that her party is actually aligned with the KKK. Factually, that's accurate. So anyway, I do need to take a quick break. We are going to get to this story. Despite, of course, Trump's executive order saying boys can't be in girls' sports, men can't be in women's sports. Schools, they've done everything in their power. The IHSA, of course, they said that they're not going to align with the Trump executive order, and they're going to abide by state law or whatever. And they kind of did this cop-out thing, which was just complete bogus. So the schools have done everything in their power to prevent Trump's national efforts to keep boys out of girls' sports. And the patriarchy prevails in Minnesota. And by patriarchy, I mean all of the systems have men in them, and there are no female systems. That's what the Democrat Party wants to do. They're regressive, and they would rather there be patriarchy, actually, in that, men are allowed to be in women's spaces. So we're going to get to this Marissa boy. He's a male high school pitcher in Minnesota, and he's dominating female softball, with a 12% hit rate against his pitches. I'm going to be right back. You're listening to Conservative Cat. Democrats ruined the Black family. Exactly. They just got smart, and they said, okay, well, how can we keep the Black family oppressed, keep them fighting with each other, keep them down, okay? Which I don't even necessarily believe that, even with all of the policies that they tried to pass here in the state of Illinois. It's really interesting. If you were to ever go to a Republican state, and you were to, there are, I have family, South Carolina, right? And they're right there in the Bible Belt. It's incredible. There's people with nice houses, and they're Black Americans. Beautiful. And they live right next to white Americans, Asian Americans, and everybody just kind of lives next to each other. In states like Illinois, where the Democrat Party where they continue this practice of NGOs and Black Lives Matters lobbying their state governments to implement policy that inherently keeps them down and keeps the elitist above them. In these types of cities and states, you'll see pockets, like actual pockets where, and this goes back to the multiculturalism thing, divisiveness, where, hey, not all cultures are equal. And if you're going to be here in America, you should assimilate to the American culture. This goes back to that a little bit, but there are pockets of Black communities, white communities, Hispanic communities, and everybody kind of lives in their own little bubble. Okay. And they don't live right next to each other. Now, if you were to go to, Republican states, that's not the way it is down there, like down south. It's not the way it is. They've just gotten better and more, what's the word? Their rhetoric and their semantics have gotten or have changed, and they've gotten crafty with their semantics. And now, KKK, BLM, same thing. Isn't it kind of interesting? 3-letter, like KKK, Ku Klux Klan, and then it changed to BLM. And they do this stuff all the time. A lot of these nonprofit organizations have like 3 letters to them. So yeah, they've just gotten crafty, and the Democrat family Democrats have completely ruined the Black family, specifically in blue states. Where these nonprofit organizations exist, subsidized poor, as I like to call them, the nonprofit organizations, they go and they lobby their government, and then they lobby for legislation that inherently keeps them down. KKK equals BLM, yes. 100%. It's the same. They've just gotten really good, the Democrats, at convincing the people they were oppressing to oppress themselves. And that's all this is about, is the Democrat Party continues to be the KKK. 3 letters is all the Dems can memorize. Yeah, the 3-letter agencies, the 3-letter like nonprofit organizations, these non-government organizations, Antifa. Yeah, Antifa is a little longer than 3 letters, but yeah, anti-fascism. It's just, I don't know what really changed this, but the language, they got their language under control. And instead of being overtly racist, they're being subtly racist. I guess, or not even subtly. I mean, this is very, very racist, but it's like a quiet racism where they do it behind all these fancy words. And really at the end of the day, it's still the same, you can dress up a pig and put pig on a lipstick, but it's still pig, right? You can dress up your oppression of the Black community and oppressing the Black community all you want, Democrats, but I see right through it. Some people might not, like the Jasmine Crockett's of the world, but I definitely see right through it. Antifa. Anti-F. Funny, very funny. All right, smash that like button. We're gonna get back. We're gonna get to this cheater. He is a male high school athlete. I hate doing this because these are really just children, and it's just quite unfortunate that his parents allowed for this kind of transition to happen. I think it started at 9 years old. He's 6 foot, okay, and this guy is just dominating in the female sport of softball. And he has a batting average. Well, girls only hit 12% of his pitches. So let me get to this story here next on Conservative Cat. Smash that like. Woohoo! Hey, good morning. You're listening to Conservative Cat on Cities 92.9. Marissa Rothenberger, 6 foot tall male, okay, in high school, pretending to be a female, and he's dominating in the girls' high school sport of softball in Minnesota. That's Tim Walz states. He's a cheater. We need to keep men out of women's sports, period. He has a 12%. So girls only hit 12% of his pitches. Okay, so he's only allowed a single hit, and he only allowed a single hit in a recent game. This is insanity. Okay, so take a listen to this. Here we go.
Rothenberger, a male pitcher absolutely dominating girls softball in Champlin, Minnesota.
And the pitch. Rothenberger back in the fifth. Swing and a miss here first. 0-2 pitch. Strike.
Rothenberger, at 6 feet tall, appears to tower over his female competition. In this game on May 6, 2025, he threw 7 strikeouts and shut out the opposing team. Apparently, Rothenberger's batting against average is .128, meaning opposing girl players only hit 12% of his pitches, which is considerably better than elite MLB players. He recently had an absurd 14 strikeouts in a single game. What was really amazing was listening to the dense male announcers as they gush about Rothenberger's wingspan and how hard he throws it.
See how she whips it? The long arms is just such an advantage.
Wow.
The whip action of that long arm for Rothenberger.
He's a boy, guys. Get it? He's male. And it's cheating. Stop gushing. The male coach who coaches Rothenberger was gushing too.
Our pitchers do a phenomenal job. We have Marissa Rothenberger. They keep us in every game.
What's not to like about having a male ringer on the team? Except it's cheating, of course. Rothenberger is apparently hoping to get recruited onto a women's softball team in college somewhere, and I found his profile on recruiting sites. But hopefully this helps expose the cheater before he can cheat any more girls out of their opportunities, scholarships, and victories.
Absolutely insanity. I mean, this is just crazy. The player described. So there was a Reddix article, and there was this girl. She spoke to Reddix on the condition of being anonymous, and the player described Rothenberger's athletic performance compared to the other girls as being completely unreal, and he was able to do so much more than the girls who train with the same exact coaches at the same exact time, at the same amount of hours, and he's relied on as a pitcher, and that took away opportunities for girls who deserve them the most. Okay, there's girls who want to pitch and they can't because he's a relied upon pitcher, because guess what, nobody can hit his balls in a single game. Like a recent game, it was like one hit in this recent game. So there's clearly a biological advantage here. I guess he is very quiet about his transition. His mother, Heather Rothenberger, applied to the Hennepin County District Court to alter his birth certificate shortly after his 9th birthday. So his 9th birthday, I'd imagine that's when the transition began, because that's when the mother changed the birth certificate. And he's participated in girls' sports from very, very early age. And he never really has publicly announced that he's transgender. But clearly, I mean, he's 6 foot tall. He had like a shutout game, absolutely insane. And he's a player from Minnesota. And it's really unfortunate that his mom, condoned this sort of thing at 9 years old, changed his birth certificate. His name used to be Charlie Dean. Now he changed it to Marissa. Minnesota is one of many states where you can alter the birth certificates and they don't need to signify what was originally in that document. So the change is the change in Minnesota, and Illinois has the same thing. At the end of the day, I mean, this is so sad. This is something that will never be moral. And the sooner the left realizes that, the better off we're all going to be. And this is cheating, period. All right. You guys have a blessed day. Bye-bye. Love you. Find me on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. Subscribe to the channel. We're going to be back tomorrow bright and early, 6 a.m. Head to cities929.com. Nominate a farmer right now. We're doing Feed the Farmers. Thank you, Corn Belt Energy, the good guys at Parker Chevy, Compeer Financial, and Lingo Precision. They're feeding the farmers again this year. We're going to take out Freaky Fast Jimmy John sandwiches to them while they're working out in their fields. Nominate a farmer today. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.